Claire?
Yeah, thank you, Claire. All those in favour say aye.
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 Thank you. Okay. Confirmation of the minutes of the service delivery report, 19th of May.
29.
2 attachments there, the open minutes and the public excluded.
I'm happy to move that down.
Thank you, Claire. You just beat me to it. Thank you. Thank you, Claire.
I'll second. Roger.
Roger, thank you, Roger. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Oh, I wasn't there. Was I there?
I don't think you were.
No, you weren't. Hazel, you've got a
Thinking I was there.
yeah. Moving on. Confirmation of the order of business. I'm happy to move that. Now I'm here.
I'll second, Graham. Jim.
Thank you, Jim. All those in favour say aye.
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 You carried. The open and public minutes being circulated, taken as true and correct record. All those in favour say aye.
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 Sorry, moving to second to first.
I'll move,
I'll
Graham.
move, Graham. Aye.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Andrew. Item 7, sorry, it's item 7. Are we on to the transportation report? Did I miss something there, Jenny?
Yeah.
No, all good, Graham. Yep, on to transportation.
Okay, thank you. Brian Hudson. Good morning, Brian.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll take my report as read, and just starting on page 2, I will cover a few highlights. So the transportation program, in the top line item, Untitled Road, we have, I guess, put that into a holding pattern through the winter with the late completion of the water main and the need to do some redesign. We weren't able to get a contract out for that, but it will be first out of the blocks in the spring. And we have done some pavement repairs and made it safe through the winter.
Excuse me, a question on the Untitled Road. Is there a widening in that program?
Yeah, so a lot of the widening has been done, and that's all the metal that's out the side of the edge of seal at the moment. And come springtime, there will be an overlay over the pavement, which will complete the widened road with new pavement.
Does that include? Sorry, does that include through the dip?
Yes.
Widening.
So we're widening as much as we can through that dip within the limits of the embankment there that's over a culvert, which is permanently flooded by the lake. So we will be widening and have curb and channel down through that dip and a guardrail on both sides of the dip. It's got a concrete guardrail one side at the moment. It'll have a steel guardrail on the other side when that is widened.
And what will the maximum width be?
It will be about 7.5 meters between the guardrails, which is...
So that pavement of how much?
I think the existing width is probably less than 6 meters. So it's about another 1.5 meters width down through that dip.
Is this a timely, perhaps time to also make the culvert a wider one so that you can actually go to the maximum, which is either side of the dip, and broaden the whole road through that area?
I guess because the lake permanently floods that culvert, it's submerged 1.5 meters or more beneath the typical lake level. It would be extremely difficult to actually widen that culvert. It would be more of a case of building a bridge, I would think, so it could be done up out of the water. So I think the improvements that we will create there with widening and guardrail will make a substantial improvement on what's there now. We have got the draft construction drawing for that area now, so I could share that with you so that you can see the proposed end result.
Yep, that would be helpful. Thank you.
So moving down there, under resurfacing, we have not achieved the total length that we would have liked to have achieved this year for chip sealing and asphalt. Obviously, the COVID event did hamper that a little, but the main thing that has been an issue is that bitumen prices have been typically 25 to 30% above the original tender prices back in March 2018, and that has affected, the length that we can afford to do within that budget. Interestingly, just in May, with very low oil prices, the bitumen price has dropped to be 24% below the tender price back in March 2018. So there are big swings in that pricing. If we are fortunate, the price will stay low and we will be able to catch up on that, and we haven't done this coming summer. Under the seal extension heading there, we've completed basically half of the length, or with Hall Street being sealed later this week, we will have completed all of the sites that we were able to under the existing budget, and the last two sites, Low Road and Rahuri Road, will be carried forward into the next financial year to complete.
Brian, can I just thank you for answering those questions that I had on that? People on those roads generally get quite excited when they know they're getting a bit of a seal extension. Yes. So it was about 2 months I went up there and had a look, and of course it hadn't been done. And of course the questions came back why, and yeah, would have been nice to have had a little bit of commentary about the reasons it wasn't done. But happy to go back to those people now and explain that they're on top of the list for next year. Thanks.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. The construction cost has been, rising. The last 12 months, it's increased about 1%, but in a couple of years before that, it was increasing at 3 or 4% per year. So we certainly, I guess, the booming economy before COVID really was pushing up those prices for construction work.
Yeah.
Ryan, could I ask a question? When the bitumen price is low, the contractors take advantage of that, and then it swings and roundabouts when it's higher. How does that work out? When do we get any kind of advantage?
It's really the luck of the draw. When tenders are put out, contractors price at the rate that there is at the time, but the cost fluctuation adjustment is published every month for the bitumen price, and the contractor's claim for work done in that month is adjusted by that cost fluctuation for bitumen, depending on how many litres of bitumen have been used. So that is the best protection for both the contractor and the council. In the past, contractors had to predict or hedge what their bitumen price would be for a season, and then councils and contractors were locked into that for the whole of the season. So this is a much fairer system, but if prices go up significantly after the tender, then we run into that issue where we have to curtail our work volume to stay within our budget. But year on year, it tends to swing up and down, and overall we tend to still manage to seal everything we have to seal.
Brian, another question, could I ask please? So would any preparatory work have been done on those two roads prior to the sealing and then it not continued, or has it just been left and will be formed up when we finally seal it?
Correct, it's just been left, yeah.
Thank you.
So construction jobs, of course, our major construction works, Hanlon Road, Williamson Street, are fully back underway with level 2. Well, we're under level 3, but also under level 2. The Te Pahu Bridge work is nearly complete. Our CCTV cameras are all installed and working as expected. And our street lighting upgrade is delayed a bit just while we get materials out of Italy and steel columns.
Brian, could I ask you about the Te Awa Cycleway and also the Te Pahu Bridge as well? Like the Te Awa Cycleway, how are those landowner discussions going? Is there anything that's holding things up? Like, can we see some good progress on that?
Yep, my understanding is that we're very close to getting the last easement agreement signed with the owner that's right on the boundary between Waipa and Waikato District. And then the Transport Agency and Waikato District Council are working with the two landowners on their side to sign agreements. So I guess this is, the Te Awa Cycleway is one of those projects that's been put forward as spade ready. So we anticipate that those final agreements will come in soon, and then in the springtime, we will be in a position to start.
Excellent. And then just on the Te Pahu Bridge, like, are you happy with the way the repairs are progressing? Like, there hasn't been anything else that's sort of coming through, or any idea when it might be complete?
Right. So certainly all the rock work is complete in the river, and I believe there was a concrete crib wall under the northern end abutment that was sort of tilting forwards, and the contractor has put in some steel anchors into that to hold that in place. So I think that is probably near finished, or is in fact finished. So the contractor will be largely just cleaning up and decamping the site now.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, Brian, just a question through you, Mr. Chair.
Lou?
Yeah, through the just about the CCTV cameras. If there's a resolution problem there with them, has that been resolved or not? There was a bit of a problem there. We were told at the community board that there was a resolution problem there with the CCTV cameras.
Yeah, there was a bit of a misunderstanding, I think, between people who were viewing some of the cameras on screen and understanding the purpose of different types of cameras that are in the scheme. So there are at all of the intersections, there are cameras that have a fairly wide field of view, and they have, you know, perfectly good resolution for that activity. And then there are other cameras which are capable of reading number plates, which have a very sort of narrow field of view, and they have a high resolution, and they read number plates very well in the daytime. And then at night time, they block out just about all light, and they just pick up the light which is being reflected off the number plate. So at night time, those cameras only see the number plate, so you can't see the vehicle. So once we sat down with the police and viewed those cameras and viewed some footage and understood, you know, the different purpose, everybody appeared to be quite happy that they were working as expected.
Thank you very much, Brian.
Brian, can I, Graham again, can I just say, I think the illuminated sign on the high level bridge gantry is definitely working to some extent. I have noticed in the afternoon, it's impossible to read the orange printing because it faces directly into the sun, and it may be that it might need to have a cover like you do on a traffic light to make it slightly darker to be able to view the message.
Okay, thank you for that, Graham. We'll check that out.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thanks, Brian.
In the next general section, I've just got a comment about road maintenance contracts to bring you up to date. Our peat swamp roads, because of the long prolonged drought that we have had, our peat swamp roads are continuing to shrink and create an uneven surface. So Collins Road, Rukahia Road, Cambridge Road, Story Road, and there are a few other places where we haven't had problems in the past, but we are having this year because of the exceptional dry weather. So in places we've had to put in some temporary repairs in asphalt. In other places we're putting in speed restrictions and uneven road surface signs. And we're probably going to have to maintain some speed restrictions and signs right through the winter, because it's not going to be possible for us to fully repair these roads because of winter temperatures and everything with sealing, but also because we expect that they will keep on shrinking. And if you travel over them in the late afternoon sun, you will see some quite marked cracks and ruts and things on them. And we are going to just have to manage that as best we can through the winter. We will get out a press release about it, and those warning signs will be in place to help the public recognise the risk and to slow down. Under our Footpath Works, we've pretty much finished that program. We're still doing repairs, those spot repairs. The only footpath that is outstanding still to be built is along Vale Street in front of the new Ministry of Social Development Welfare building, which is happening this month. Under our pedestrian safety works, all of those works are finished in Prongia, and there's just the one on Victoria Street opposite the town hall to be done with curb and channel, which will start later this month or in June.
Through you, Mr. Chair, Brian, I'd just like to comment on, you know, that work's being done on Crozier Street and Franklin Street. Like it's really great. I think it's made it a lot. It's just improved it our site really compared to what it was. Yeah, it's really fantastic. I haven't had particular feedback from individuals, but that might be because of the lockdown. But I just think it's a massive improvement, and congratulations on such an outstanding result. It's great.
Thank you. That's the sort of result we're after. So yeah, appreciate that.
Can I just go back to through the chair to you, Brian, just quietly. Rewe Street, just by the Redoubt there was a very, very big entrance that is quite badly broken that we sort of applied or was put into your work program. I just don't see it on the program at all. Right. That's just right on the edge there. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That will be under the that last part of the program, the footpath maintenance and pram crossings. Right. So you'll see we'd at the beginning of the year we'd identified 74 sites, and throughout the year we've identified more. So we've done 124 sites, and I'm certainly aware there are others around, like the one you mentioned, that still need to be done. So we will continue to do those, and we're prioritising them within the available budget that we have left for the year.
Thank you very much.
There is a photograph there of the Te Pahu Bridge repair on page 4 of my report, which shows that rock work gone into the stream bed to prevent that scour in the future. Under the passenger transport item, the new timetable for buses did start 20th of January with an extra bus service in the evening, and that was causing an upward trend in the use of those bus services before the impact of the COVID stopped that. But,
yeah, Brian, that was one of the complaints we got from passengers in terms of catching that first bus out of Hamilton soon after 5. It was too early. So putting that later bus on means we're getting better patronage and more happy customers who don't have to sprint to catch the early bus.
Yes. Yeah, we'll be looking forward to things getting back to normal and seeing how that bus service use continues to grow.
Yeah, Brian, can you just, while we're on passenger transport, can you just outline for the councillors just how that fits in with regional council and the local councils in terms of the input and the costings? Just could be useful. Right.
So our passenger transport is basically, because it runs between our region and Hamilton City, and the services provide some service to Hamilton City residents as well. So Hamilton City pay 25% of our bus service cost. We pay 25%, and the transport agency pays the other 50%. So that is of the costs that are left over after the customer fares are deducted. Yeah.
Thank you. We were achieving a 38% fare box recovery before the lockdown, so that would be way down now, but that's just one of those things.
Yes, that's right. Under parking improvements, so you will have seen, if you've been about town, there's a number of streets now that have got individual marked parking spaces on them. That number of markings has been increased. The parking demand and supply survey, which was completed in November, and reported to staff in March. Staff have worked through that, analysed the findings, and are preparing a report to elected members with some recommendations on changes. And then after that has come to elected members, we would be doing some public engagement, and particularly engagement with the key stakeholders like the business communities, Te Miru and Cambridge, to get their feedback before further changes are made. Engagement of a parking enforcement officer for additional enforcement work is on hold, just pending a bit of a review when we get to the end of COVID and look at existing staff workloads and the like. Our recycling contract operation is back to normal after all of the disruption of COVID, and for a time there, a lot of material was either going to Visi in Auckland or where it was badly contaminated to the landfill. But that operation has stopped, and it's all going back through our sorting facility.
Brian, may I ask a question through you, Mr. Chair?
Roger.
Thank you. Brian, when you say it's getting back to normal, when do you think we'd be able to expect those cul-de-sac streets that are not being serviced by the trucks to recommence?
That did start again when we entered into level 2.
Oh, great. There was no notification came round, so I think I'm in one of those, and we're still carting our bins up to the nearest Queen Street drop-off.
Okay.
So we can stop that now, can't we?
That's right. Yes, there was a bit of a press release, but I think it probably got hidden a bit amongst all the other information that's come out. Yep.
Great, thank you.
Marcus.
Hey, Brian, is there any chance or any procedure to get bins replaced? Because a lot of people are complaining that their lids are being smashed and broken and things by the trucks, and no one knows how to get their bins replaced or what can be done about that. And also, is there any chance that we could have a look through the recycling centre? Because I see further down that there's going to be a media tour of it, and it'd be quite interesting. Well, I'd find it quite interesting too if we could go through there.
Yes, certainly. Certainly was the proposal that we create an open invitation for the elected members and others within council staff to come along and see the sorting facility. So we'll just have to look at and see what is the appropriate timing perhaps for that, but yeah, before too long we should be able to do that. And I'm sure people will find that interesting, or those people who like noisy machinery and whirring industrial processes will find that interesting. So the next item there, the assisted service.
The bin replacement, Brian.
The bin lids as well.
Sorry. Thank you. Yep. So a call to our customer services team with advice of a broken lid that then goes to our contractor Metallic, who has got lots of spare parts, wheels and lids and things like that, and they will send their crew out. They've got people who are out all the time delivering new bins to new households and making those repairs. So it is a relatively straightforward, make the request, goes into the register, and the contractor is dispatched on the, I guess, on the day that the bin is put out to replace lids and do things.
Thanks, Brian.
Under the assisted service update there, this was a new feature of the contract for those with a disability who weren't able to take their bins out to the street. So we have 44 customers using that service. They make a simple application process. My staff visit them and make sure we've got all of the details correct and work out where the bin is going to be placed so that the driver can retrieve it. And then that service seems to be happening pretty smoothly, as I say, with a number of people having elected to use that service.
Through you, as Chair, I'd like to congratulate you, Brian. That was an excellent service. And from the RSA point of view, we've got 4 or 5 of our members that are very, very appreciative of the service. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Waste minimisation program, there's some highlights there of activities that have happened over the last few months. Sally Fraser and community volunteer groups and others have all been very busy.
I have a question through you, Mr. Chair. Just
Certainly has. Oh, Liz, sorry.
Hey, Brian, just in regards to, I guess, waste minimisation, I just wondered, and I have emailed you, and I know it's planned, but I just thought I'd raise it in front of the other councillors as well. It sort of seems a little ironic that we've got, that we're wanting to help the community around waste minimisation, but we are not really making any effort to recycle ourselves on the main streets of our key towns. So I'm always surprised that other towns have recycling stations on their main streets, but Cambridge and Te Awamutu, Kiki don't. Is that something that I just feel it's a bad look that we're not doing that? Is that something that we can maybe progress?
Yeah, I guess it's an interesting one. Certainly my staff have looked into what it costs and how effective it is. And through those bins on the street, I think it is more about a look rather than an effectiveness, because they don't actually gather a lot of material, and often it is badly contaminated, so may well end up going into landfill. So I think we probably get much better bang for our buck by spending it on the other activities that we are spending on, rather than dealing with a small amount of waste in a commercial area. It looks good, but just how effective it is.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that, Brian, as well, and I wondered how many retailers would start utilising it as their own personal recycling service as well. So, you know, I know it's an awkward one. It's just the perception, I suppose, that yeah, I was probably interested in your thoughts on. Thank you.
I think the much bigger impact we're going to get is when product stewardship rolls out, and there is far more you know, manufacturers of products, and that whole of the nationwide impact that we will see with that product stewardship, where people are taking back products like bottles or cans or packaging and things like that. You know, the major change we saw in supermarkets with them removing single-use plastic bags, that's the sort of impact that is possible when it's nationwide and very well, you know, coordinated amongst all the players.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just on that point, Brian, because I'm really interested in recycling too, and I understand that those public recycling stations are really aimed at visitors, and that really it is a small volume, because if they are staying locally, it's their accommodation provider that's the best place for them to actually recycle their stuff, rather than out when they're out and about. But on that product stewardship scheme, we've been waiting for ages for that to start. Like, do you know when that bottle deposit scheme is actually going to come into action? Because it's been signalled for ages and ages, and I'm just getting a bit impatient with it. Like, have you any idea?
Yeah, we did have a bit of a conference, well, Zoom type meeting with Ministry for Environment staff and waste minimisation officers around the country. Well, they've been doing these regional workshops and looking at this national standardisation of recycling. So definitely the Ministry for Environment have got strong plans and are making progress, but it is I guess it's a complex beast, because there's lots of different ways of doing it, and they're looking, I guess, around the world at how it's done in different places and working out what's the best way to do it in New Zealand, because it does involve a lot of behaviour change. And if you're, say, trying to get people to bring back and deposit bottles or whatever and get a credit, how do you give that credit to them? So there's, yeah, lots of technology and mechanics and things in going to this next step.
Yeah, well, some of us remember, you know, way back when it used to be, yeah, in place, and I just feel I wish they'd get on with it and just do it again.
Yes. There's a list there under 3.9 of community funding that has been distributed or is programmed to be distributed, and there's some interesting projects there that have come to fruition in terms of the outcome of some of these community projects, like the community gardens in Cambridge and the Cambridge Grains with their machine to compress bags to allow them to be reused. There's others there that are on their way with electronic waste and other programs that are starting as the COVID sort of change allows those projects to get underway again. And there's a little bit of an update there on some projects that were funded in previous years that are still going and still producing good results, like cafes using reusable cups, customers bringing their own cups, that sort of thing, and other ones that have happened at festivals and schools. So there's a lot there to read if people want to read through that. But if I skip section 4 under levels of services and performance measures, so we'll see the recycling complaints under 4.2. They have been quite high since the beginning of the rollout of the bins, and there were lots of issues with obviously getting all those bins delivered to the right addresses, and customers having to make adjustments to the new way of doing things, but also in the contractor having to train staff and get used to new technology to guide their collection routes and things. All of those issues caused us some problems and floods of complaints at times, but we are seeing a steady drop down to what I would hope would be a new low level of complaints, which is pleasing to see, because it certainly has been hard work for all involved, our customer services team and staff having to deal with these issues. We see waste minimisation recycling volumes have stayed pretty constant, although the reporting mechanism does mean that in some months the contractor is storing the glass in big bins and then taking it to OI in Auckland, and so it doesn't show up in each month, so we get these funny lumps and bumps in the graph, but we are close to where we expect to be with the total volume of recyclables. Under road and footpath service requests, staff have got behind with the administrative part of the system of closing off those calls in the system. Overall, the number of CRM requests from customers has been dropping year on year for the last 2 years, which is great. But we just need to be smarter at our way of closing those off in the system so that we can, provide a better record of response times and things. Yeah, so that does bring me to the end of the report. If there's any other questions, happy to take them.
Brian, I've just got one. As Bruce, just where I live, Tar Road, they've done a magnificent job, and the chips are quite small. And you go on other roads and they're quite big, especially when some of us have been on our bikes recently and done a few Ks. It's a big difference. How do you determine what kind of seal? Because the small stuff is certainly a lot nicer to drive and ride on. So could you explain that?
Sure.
Thank you.
So the chip we put on next, it's a bit of a cycle. If we've put a big chip on previously, then it's got lots of voids in the surface that if we tried to put another big chip on, we would have to put an enormous quantity of bitumen on. So we designed the next chip size to sort of fit into the voids a bit, and so that it locks in place and uses a sensible amount of bitumen. But also, obviously, where we've got very high volume roads and the bigger chip is often used on those high volume, especially where there's a lot of heavy trucks, because they do tend to push the small chips into the bitumen, and the bitumen rises to the surface faster, and then we end up with a flush or slick sort of surface. So you'll see generally our rural roads, our arterial roads will tend to have a bigger chip on them, and the quiet country roads can generally have a smaller chip on them.
Thank you.
Brian, can I say a big thank you from the Kihikihi people for doing the individual parking spaces along the main street. Yeah, there's been quite a few comments about, hey, thank goodness at long last, because it was terrifying when you had a big truck parked on both sides of the street, reducing the highway through to about one lane, you know, and so that used to happen quite regularly. So we were very pleased, and I said I would pass their thanks on to you.
Right, thank you.
Yeah, Brian, can I just say an update from my walk this morning? The construction in Williamson Street outside the Cambridge pool's not yet finished as it says on here. They tell me this morning that there's been such a demand for ready mixed concrete that they've had to get in line, so they've been delayed in terms of getting the concrete to do the curb and channel and the drainage. So I suppose the lockdown's over and everybody wants concrete in 10 minutes. And I ran into a friend this morning who unfortunately our recycling truck picked up a recycling bin and then smashed straight into the back of the boot of his car, and the car wasn't drivable. And how the hell that happened, he doesn't know. But yeah, not exactly doing 100 Ks.
Yeah, that's a surprise. But
yeah, very big surprise. Yeah. Are there anything else before we have a mover in a second for the recommendation? A big full report, Brian. Thanks so much. There's so much to catch up on. It's great. A mover in a second, if there's no more questions to Brian, please.
Happy to move.
Thank you, Mike.
Yep, I'll second. Philip.
Thank you, Phil. All those in favour say aye.
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 Are carried. Thanks so much, Brian. Now we have Martin of the Water Services Quarterly Report. Good morning, Martin.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, councillors.
You have had one hell of a year, can I say, with the dry. Well done, anyhow. You've got through.
Yeah, you've taken the wind out of my sails there. That's okay.
I was talking to some of the farmers that are on the peat, and they're saying that they've never seen the peat land so dry, and hence it's affecting our roads as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Cool. So I'd just like to take the report as read and happy to answer any questions. Just a couple of things to highlight. So first, I'd like to highlight the fantastic work the team have done over the summer period in keeping the drinking water flowing, also the value of the recent Carapero water treatment plant upgrade, which meant that Cambridge only went to alert level 1, so that shows the value of that upgrade for sure. Another thing is on page 2 is that we had a technical non-compliance due to 2 missed samples on the Pukrimu scheme, which will result in a non-compliance for that scheme for the year. We did an audit and identified that the 2 samples had been missed a few months ago, which meant in that non-compliance. So there was no risk to anybody, but it's a technical non-compliance.
Okay.
Could I just ask Martin about that through you, Mr. Chair?
Yes, Claire.
Yeah. Thanks, Martin. In fact, really great report, and yeah, echo what other people said. You know, fantastic work, and I think the detail in your report is really great too. But just on that technical non-compliance, like I get a bit frustrated that the reporting that we'll be sending through to the Ministry of Health is that this scheme will now be non-compliant, when in fact, in your own words, there's no risk to public health. And is there any way that we can have reporting that shows that this is a non-compliance, but it's a technical one and there's no risk to human health? I just feel that the reporting framework is not fit for purpose if we are sending a message to the community that we're non-compliant, because it sounds like we don't care about their health, but we do. And it's just that it's a technical issue. It's just simply that not enough samples were taken to satisfy a particular methodology.
Yeah, but ultimately, you know, I think the rationale for technical non-compliance is if a council has too many of those, it shows their processes and systems aren't good, and therefore they are putting people's health at risk. So it's a way of saying, yep, we've had one technical non-compliance, but if there was a history or reoccurrence of those, it shows you're not doing your job very well. So I think that's the purpose of them.
Mm.
And so they are important from that perspective.
Yeah. I mean, I can understand that. It's just that perhaps there needs to be some kind of hierarchy of the reporting so that, you know, when you got a low-level technical non-compliance, it's reported in this particular way, because at the moment there's no way to differentiate, and I feel it's a really great failing. And in fact, because, you know, water systems are coming under the spotlight, I think that the reporting that we have has to be fit for purpose. We can't just have black or white, you know, we need graduations.
I'd say it would probably go the other way with the new drinking water regulator. It'll probably get tougher, and it'll be very much more black and white than it is now. Would be my take on that.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, may I make a comment?
Sure, go Andrew.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, Claire, but I do think, and I'm sure the regulators will take this view, that the danger of having a regulated non-compliance is people start taking no notice of the technical non-compliances, and therefore, you know, they become effectively useless. I mean, the issue here is that testing is important, and when we fail to conduct our tests properly, it should be noted and treated seriously.
I would just hope that with a better funded regulator, there'd be a bit more intelligence in the system so that you can have graduated reporting. I can see no reason why you couldn't have, you know, as I said, you know, differentiation between the various, I suppose, failures to reach a certain standard. So that I'm sure it's the case in other industries, and I don't know why we would be settling for a black and white, only one or the other, you know, like when you look at what the risks actually are.
Yeah, I think that the benchmark is 0 technical non-compliances to be compliant. If you said, oh, you're allowed 4, then we would all have 3. You know, it drives us to do the right thing, as that Councillor Brown said, rather than ignore them.
Oh well, I'm not saying we should ignore them, but it's because you're actually saying that you're onto it and you're responding immediately now that you've realised that there was this issue, you know, that hadn't been picked up before. Yeah, but
if you're allowed 3 or 4 of those, then you might not react until you'd got 3. It's a difficult one. Yeah.
Okay.
But it will get tougher with once the new regulator gets his feet under the table, for sure.
Chair.
Marcus.
Yep. I'm just one thing that's come up with our moving to water alert levels restrictions quite quickly is that industries who rely on water supply, like garden centres and like growing spectrum and things like that, they need some better notice next time, instead of just, you know, council stating we're going to level 2 on Tuesday or things like that. Is there any way that we can, in the future, if we have to go to water alert levels, we can give those industries a bit more of a heads up in the future?
The change in alert levels are based on demand, and so if the demand increases beyond the trigger level, we then move to the next alert level. So it'd be hard, you know, if we then waited a week to give people notice, that would be a further week of high demand that we wouldn't be on top of. Not so much not giving them notice, but just maybe giving an indication that, hey, we're looking at moving to different water alert levels in maybe a week or things like that. Because I know some garden centres and like the commercial nursery and things like that have been sort of caught out with the sudden changes, and it would be good if we could just give them a rough idea or a heads up in the future so that they can plan around, you know, what plants to buy in and things like that, or just a bit more budgeting around. Oh yeah, I mean, everybody needs to look at the summer and the drought that we had to realise it was not a normal year and was challenging. And so we needed to move quite quickly when the stream dropped quite significantly, quite quickly in its flow. So it wasn't a really much chance of taking much time. But yeah, we'll take that on board, and perhaps more advertising that we're in summer, and we do introduce water alert levels.
Martin, can I ask a question? I see that you comment on the Waikato District Council going to water care, and they're looking to exit the 3 council team. Are there any financial impacts on a council moving away from that strategy, from that committee?
Yes, there is. So we all signed a contract when we joined many years ago, and
Okay.
there is a termination clause that the party leaving has to pay the costs leaving, and we're currently negotiating with Waikato what those costs are.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Can we go to 4, water demand?
Yeah, can do. I haven't got any other highlights. If anyone's got any other questions, well, apart from we've just completed the Free Waters Master Planning project as well, which was been a major a project, which again puts the council in good stead to know what water infrastructure requirements are for the future. So that was a massive piece of work that's been just recently completed as well. So that's really good. Yeah. But do you have a question on water demand, Graham?
No, I'm just trying to
move us along.
Keep the meeting going.
So I've highlighted the key points. I don't know if anyone's got any other questions from the report. If not, we can.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got questions about the asset planning. That's all. I don't know if I'm jumping too far ahead.
No, that's fine.
Oh yeah, well, Martin, I'm looking under section 8, which is on page 12 of your report.
Yep.
I can't see what number it is on our agenda. The top one is about renewals, and you mentioned that there have been some pipes that have been parked in the too difficult basket, which is great imagery. I'm just a bit concerned that this is the first time actually councillors have been made aware that not all the renewals have been completed simply because it might have been that they're in these culturally sensitive sites or, in private property, and so it's actually been in the too hard basket. Could you give us a bit of an idea, what percentage of renewals might that be? Is that why we've been under, not reaching the target for full renewals or something? Is it a big problem? I mean, I can appreciate that, it's a difficult thing, and so I can understand why it might have been left, but I'm just wanted to get an idea of the magnitude of the issue.
No, it's not a large proportion of our work, and historically we tried to get as many renewals done as we can, and so those ones that do become challenging get left, and we concentrate on the work we can do. So we've just got trying to get ahead of the game for next year and get the archaeological assessments done and get the agreements in place so we can start those as soon as we can.
Okay, so it's not, there's not very many that you're not concerned about it as a reducing the us below that 100% renewal target and things like that. No. Thanks.
Further questions for Martin, please?
Yeah, thanks, Graham. Through you, do we have has COVID impacted on the whole Te Aumutu water treatment, water provision negatively? We were hoping to have it not this summer coming, but the one after. Is that still on target, Martin?
Yep. So it's still we're still on target to have the project completed in time. I can't stop my phone from ringing. Yeah, so it was still planned to be complete the year after, for not this summer, the summer coming. Yeah. So yeah, COVID. Yep. Sorry, Dawn.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair. I was just going to comment that was one contract that wasn't suspended, was the design of the parallel road water treatment plant. So that design work has continued on at pace through this period. So fortunately, yeah, there shouldn't be too much of a hold up and flow on effect. And I think, Martin, you also ordered a piece of equipment prior to the lockdown, just prior to sort of guaranteed delivery.
Yeah, so for some of the larger pieces of equipment for the new parallel treatment plant, we ordered those before the lockdown to get ahead of any orders because they come from overseas. Yeah. So.
Any further questions? Okay, so there is a recommendation there that we receive this report. I'd like a mover and a seconder, please.
I'll move that way, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Lou.
I'll second.
Thank you, Philip. All those in favour say aye.
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 Carried. Thank you. Martin, you're still on for the emergency responsive.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. So again, I take the report as read and happy to answer any questions. Again, only one key point really is that although we have the emergency and incident management plans, they are quite dated and do need reviewing and updating. I think there is a business case to go into the LTP to do some of those large ones that are quite significant, but we'll certainly start reviewing them next year.
Martin, was this brought about for you to review this nationally because of the Havelock North water and maybe the Taupo sewage spill? Did that bring that to a head?
Yeah, certainly the Taupo spill brought it to a head for us to look at what response plans we had and were they fit for purpose.
Right.
And ultimately, as it says in the report, Hamilton City Council and Waikato District Council have both been taken to court and fined for wastewater spills, and Taupo weren't because they had the correct procedures and they followed them and they followed their emergency plan. So we're making sure we've got our emergency plans up to date. So if we do have an event and we follow the plan, then it protects us from prosecution.
Fantastic. Questions to Martin, please.
Through you, Mr. Chair. I mean,
Andrew?
Obviously, you're taking the correct action. That's really good, and I'd like to move the recommendation.
Thank you, Andrew. Moved by Councillor Andrew Brown. Seconder, please.
I'll second, Graham.
Thank you, Your Worship. All those in favour say aye.
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 Martin, thank you very much. We move on to the contract signed and the delegation report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Dawn.
The two contracts that have been awarded over the last period. So yeah, just letting you know that those have been awarded, and yeah, looking for confirmation today from council.
Thank you, Dawn.
Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. I'm presuming that the Garland track work was the one at Mangatautri going off Hicks Road on that new access way?
No, it's actually in Cambridge. The Settlers Track is one of the sites that's in through there, doing remedial work through there, and the other site is in Parongia. So doing track work through Parongia Village.
Yep. Fantastic. If there's no more questions, there's a recommendation there that we accept this report.
I'm happy to move, Graham.
Yeah, thank you, Sue.
I'll second.
Thank you, Philip. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Carried. Thank you so much. Memorandum of Understanding with iwi in relation to the Cambridge wastewater plant. Marie, good morning.
Morning.
Nice to see you. Thank you for your report. We've had a good go on this a bit, haven't we? So this is the final outcome.
We have. So through you, Mr. Chair, we'll take the report as read, and it's basically a follow-on from the workshop that we undertook earlier in the month regarding the MOU, and just confirming the delegation to the Mayor and Chief Executive to be able to sign the MOU on Council's behalf. I'm happy to go back through the report if you'd like, but we did just discuss it at our workshop, so happy to take questions if that's more appropriate.
Mr. Chair, I'm happy to move. Susan.
Thank you, Sue.
Could I just ask a question, please, Mr. Chair?
Sure.
Thanks, Marie. I'm not sure if this is the right item, or whether it's to do with the actual details of the memorandum. But the big question I have is that it's proposed to do this work with the business case using the better business case of the Treasury model, and it's really a financial model. You know, you've got economic, financial, commercial, that kind of thing. There's nothing in there for environment or social or, what you call these non-financial aspects of a project. And because the whole, like the overarching purpose is guided, by restoring the well-being of the Waikato River, well, that's not a financial concept, is it? So one of the big questions I have is, how is that going to be catered for in this sort of collaborative setup that's being planned?
Yeah, so I think you're referring to our next report, which is in public excluded. So we can definitely go into more detail, but economics are different, and the environment are definitely included. But happy to discuss now or at the next report.
I'll wait to the next item then.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any further questions to Marie on the report?
Happy to second, Graham.
You happy to second, Mike?
Yes.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favour say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Carried. Thank you very much, Marie. Well done. The next thing, we need a couple of minute break while we go to the public excluded.
We're just going to move and second, Graham, to go into PE, please.
Yes, thank you.
I'll move.
I'll move. I'll
I'm
second.
Roger and
Philip.
Thank you, Graham.
All those in favour say aye. Against, carried.
Aye.
Thank you. Let us know